The biggest mistake new Christians make, and it's not what you think. All right, so today we are looking forward to just pulling you up to the table and having a one-on-one with you. If you had just given your life to Christ and you literally just met with us once a week, these are the types of conversations that we would be having. So we really value times like this where we can help you just week by week, sequentially just building on your faith, helping you to grow in your relationship with God, and also helping you to recognize and realize your purpose in living for God each and every week. So it's beautiful.
That's right. We want to be so very, very practical that every week you can just apply something else to your life.
Yeah.
So if you find value in these videos, just like it, and we would just encourage you to subscribe and hit the bell notification so that every week you know when a new video has dropped. All right. Well, today I'm excited because we wanted to do something different.
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of interview you, Brad, and have you share part of your story that you don't talk about very often.
Sure.
Because, before Jesus, most of our lives were pretty messed up, and it's not really something we like to talk about.
Yeah.
But the fact is, when you begin to understand that I was once, a baby believer.
Sure.
And the steps that you started taking to get on the right track with God and where you are now, pastoring a church and leading your family, I think it's really important, and they're going to find value in that because this is a mistake that you didn't make. And
Thank
I think
God.
had you
Yeah.
made this number one mistake, we would not be married today and we would not be sitting
That's
here
true.
in the studio recording this video for
It's
you.
really just I stumbled into making the right decisions.
Yeah.
And this is one thing that I know if I would not have gotten this right, nothing
Okay.
would be the way that it is.
So let's just start from the beginning.
Okay.
So you give your life to Jesus, right? You're living in Jeff City. You go to a church because you were invited, which is like so important to invite your friends because you probably would not have gone had you not been invited, right?
Right.
Somebody invites you to church. You go to church. You give your life to Jesus.
Sure.
Tell us what your life looked like at the very moment you gave your life to Christ.
Yeah, so
where were you living? What were you doing?
Right. So I was very young, about probably 20 years old. And at the time, I was completely, had a knowledge of God, but did not have a real and life-changing relationship with Jesus that was contagious. I was living with a woman that I wasn't married to, and really just living the married life.
Pretending to be married.
But I wasn't. And I was, like most people, just working really hard, chasing the mighty dollar, really thinking that if I work hard and make a lot of money, that's going to somehow pay off and it's going to bring this fulfillment and gratification. And, my heart was full of just greed and lust and the pride of life and all these things that so many of us are driven by. And I was completely empty on the inside. I would have thought, after chasing after these things, that they would have paid off and made me full and gratified and satisfied fully, but I was empty. I was empty on the inside. And so, I give my life to Christ, and here I am, living in this life where I'm completely miserable. I've made this decision for Christ. And I mean,
how soon after you made this decision for Christ did you, honestly think to yourself, I need to make a change?
Yeah, immediately.
Really?
Yeah, immediately.
So,
like that,
you said
that week.
You prayed a prayer.
Yeah, so on I think it was a Wednesday night. And it was in February. I think it was like a Valentine's Day, thing that the youth group was doing. And I was kind of just hanging out with the youth in the back. And I remember feeling God's presence so strong. I just broke and just completely, I couldn't stop crying. And I was just overwhelmed. And I was embarrassed, but I was overwhelmed with how strong God's presence was on me, and I just couldn't stop crying. And I knew when I left that night, finally I had felt full. I mean,
it's awesome.
In that moment, I was like, this is
what you were missing.
This is what I've been looking for.
Yeah.
And I finally feel the gratification and the satisfaction, the fulfillment that I've been wanting. And it didn't come with money. It didn't come with sex. It didn't come with my ego being scratched. It didn't come with title or status or being well known. It didn't come with all the things that I thought would do it. but it was him. It was the presence of God. It was his Holy Spirit. Yeah. It was Jesus. And so I knew immediately that week, like I'm scratching my head, like, okay, I can't, I'm living in a world that it hasn't worked. It's not working. It's not going to work. And I'm pretty dramatic, like in that I'm
You're all or nothing.
All or nothing.
You're really all or
radical,
nothing. Yeah.
All or nothing. If I'm going to do something, I want to do it right, and I want to do it all out, 100%. And
so you knew that living with someone you weren't married to
I knew
was
this wasn't
not going
working.
to work.
This wasn't going to work. So I'm strategizing. How do I make this work? And so, so I remember the woman that I was living with. She actually went with some friends on a trip. And it was during that time I had the house to myself, and it was wonderful because the Lord was able to just deal with my heart, and He was telling me, you need to move out, you need to just change your life, and you need to be radical about it. And so this was a huge key for me. One of the pastors in the church that I'd visited knocked on my door, and came to visit me. And in that conversation, my wheels have been turning for days. And in that conversation, I said, I need to change the way I'm living. And I can't keep doing what I've been doing because I'm going to continue down the same path. And that path is going to lead to destruction for my future and my destiny and everything. And so I need help. And I said, do you have any guys in the church that like single guys that need a roommate, somebody that I can, move in with and quickly? I mean, like
finding a new place to live.
Go get some guys. Go
huge.
Grab some guys and a couple trucks, and let's just do this. And so, and I think that's really important. That's not like part of our notes today, but it's important to recognize that God is for you.
That's right.
And His favor goes before you. And when you try to make strides and steps towards living for Him, He'll part the waters, and He'll make it happen.
That's right.
And I'm telling you that pastor just like scooped me up in his arms. And I'm sorry, I get really emotional when I think about how God just rescued me.
Yeah.
Out of that life. And man, he grabbed some guys and they came over with trucks like within days, and he found me a roommate, godly, incredible man, and I moved into his house, and from that moment forward, I said, I'm not going back. I'm not doing this. I have to change everything. And so I just committed in that moment. I'm going to be in this church every time the doors are open. I'm going to get involved. Anything they need me to do, I'm going to do it. And I'm just going to be here. And this is my new family. And this is my new life. And I just began thinking about things that I needed to cut away and change, and relationships. And I just began to set a new course with a new direction, with new habits, new people, new places, new things. Yeah. And from that moment, there's a story there, but here I am today,
right? A
pastor, and madly in love with God, and so many lives are being changed as a result of just God rescuing me in that chapter in my life. And there's some things that I did that were so key.
Right. That's what
we
want.
One major thing that I did right. Thank God.
That's really what we want to talk about. So many people say, and I've heard this saying so many times, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Right. So in that moment, when you gave your life to Christ, obviously you were surrounded by people who were not living for Christ. You were not surrounded by people who were going to push you and help you grow in a new walk with Jesus.
Every one of them.
All of them.
None of them were in church. None of them were serving God.
Yeah, they were living for themselves.
Yeah, my life was inundated with people who weren't living for God.
And here's what I want to say as well. They probably weren't bad people.
No.
I mean, some of those people I know now,
great people.
Right? They were great people, but they just weren't going to push you into a relationship with Jesus and help you grow the way you needed to. Right. So let's kind of really just like dive in, because we're going to give you 3 things today that you did, Brad, and that every new believer needs to do if they are going to not make this huge mistake. We've heard a stat for many years now that 88 to 90% of students, by the time they are basically 20 years
about
old
my age.
and or
20, 21.
sophomores in college, those who grew up in church, they walk away from God. They walk away from their faith. And that's kind of your story, because you were in and out of church with your family, right? You grew up
I grew up
going
in a
to church,
Christian home,
but you weren't living for Jesus.
but wasn't living for God.
So the fact is, there's something missing. And really what it boils down to is, who are you surrounding yourself with? Who are your friends? The second you say yes to Jesus, you need to do one thing. Immediately, you need to do this. Survey your center of influence. Who surrounds me? Who do I spend my time with?
Right.
What are they like? What are they doing? You know, I love the scripture in the Bible that says, bad company corrupts good character. I remember hearing that as a kid, and it's so real. It's so true, because whoever you choose to spend time with, you're gonna become like them.
Right.
You're gonna act like them, think like them, talk like them. The more time you spend with them,
And like you said, it's not that these people are bad people.
No.
Right? I mean, truly, if we want to be real, we're all bad people,
Right?
Because we are born into a sin nature. So
Bible says we've all
we're all evil, right? But because of the grace of God and because of the blood of Christ and what He's done in our lives, we're none of us are good people.
Yep.
Right. But the people that were in my life, they would have, as friends you have that you look at and you're like, they're not in church, but man, they would take the shirt off their back, and I could call them in the middle of the night and they would be there to help me if my car broke down or whatever. And so, that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is influences that are in your life that aren't going to push you towards God having a relationship with Christ and living God's purpose.
Right.
So we're not saying that, we're not hating on people.
No,
we're not saying
absolutely
that these people are bad. We're not saying that they're evil. What we're saying is there has to be an evaluation of, okay, who is in my life and what relationships really probably need to take a pause for a while and maybe one day come back, in your relationship with them when you're able to be the influencer rather than being influenced.
If you decide in your mind, man, I want to live for God, I want to live for Jesus, I really believe God has a plan for my life, then you got to decide, are the people I'm hanging out with, whoever that center of influence, are they going to help me get to my goal, or are they honestly going to stop me from it? Are they going to pull me down?
Right.
Okay, moving on.
Okay, so the second thing that I did, I just made the decision, I'm going to be in church every time the doors are open. I'm going to get connected, and that's exactly what I did. Every time, and at that point in time, we had Sunday morning services, we had Sunday night services, we had Wednesday night services. Day, man. Yeah, we were doing church. I felt bad for my pastor. I'm like, this dude is beast mode. Like, he is preaching
Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night
a week. Hip hip hooray for the people's shoulders who we're standing on today. But then anytime there was any sort of volunteer opportunities, I was there.
Well, let me ask you a question. So all your friends that you previously had before making that decision for Christ were not living for Jesus.
Right.
So obviously the place to find some new friends would be church.
Yes.
So you got in, and honestly, so many times people come to church, and I was this way, like when I had to go to a new church, like I was very shy. And so I remember going in and sitting down and getting up and leaving and never really talking to anybody.
Right.
That's like the worst thing you could do. So you did what you should do, and that is you just joined anything and everything.
I leaned in.
You got in a singles group, right?
Yep.
That church had like a single
small
group.
Yeah.
And you got in volunteering, right? So whatever they called that at Mountain Movers, we call it the serve team.
Yeah, but it wasn't even an official serve team.
Oh, you were just like,
I was just
I'll
saying,
be here and help you.
I am here and I'm available, and I was single, and so
you had some more time.
I had some more time, and so I was just like anything and everything, and the guy that came to my house that day, the pastor, we became fairly good friends really quickly, and so I was like, dude, just help me, just be here and get engaged, because I really need to what I'm trying to do, really, I didn't realize what I was doing, but I was putting on blinders from my past, from the old life. I was trying to put up
full force
walls
ahead.
of distraction, to keep from getting distracted by the old, people, by the past creeping in and saying, hey, let's
your habits
go hang out this Friday night. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. So I was going
to say, whatever you had done before on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday,
new
Saturday,
routine,
Sunday, you needed a new routine,
everything.
a new habit.
Yeah.
So getting connected in church,
yeah,
that did it for you.
Yeah, so that was my new tribe.
That's awesome. So there's lots of options, but the fact is you got to get in church and get connected. All right. Finally, number 3.
Number 3 is choose your inner circle wisely.
Okay, let's talk about this.
This was crucial for me.
What do we mean when we say your inner circle? Okay? Your inner circle is 3 to 5 people that are the closest to you. Okay? Mm-hmm. This may be your family.
It could be.
It could be your family. It could be your best friends. You have got to choose so wisely who those people are, because your inner circle are the people you spend the most amount of time with. And we get it. If you are married and you gave your life to Jesus, we're not telling you don't be married anymore.
We're not telling you to get a divorce.
So we are telling you, though, you have got to get around some different people who are going to encourage you. But you really need to choose wisely who you spend a lot of time with. Yeah. And in the beginning, it may be a little bit lonely as you are learning to put some separation between your old friends and you start the process of making new friends who are going to help you grow in your walk with God. Yeah. Before we wrap up today, I want to just encourage you guys. There's a book by a friend of ours who is a pastor, Pastor Ed Young, and he wrote this book, 50 Shades of They. And this is all about
book on this topic.
The influences in our life and how they affect us, especially in our walk with God. Yeah. I would encourage you guys to grab that.
Yeah, for sure. So, I would just this last thing that you said about choosing your friends wisely. I think about a family that was in our church recently, and this particular girl was trying to overcome drug abuse, and unfortunately, her mom was the source. Yeah. She was the one providing her with the drugs. And so when, she's trying to live for God, but then whenever she went over to her mom's house, her mom was, encouraging her to continue in her use. And so that's horrible that it would be that way, where, your family in some instances is going to be the greatest threat to your spiritual, growth. Yeah. But you have to be radical. You got to do what you got to do. In that case,
she brought some separation.
Yeah, she parted ways for a while.
Between her and her mom. Not to say I don't want to ever see you again. She just parted ways from the constant being together to where it was way more limited.
Yeah. Because the reality is, the enemy is going to hit you hard and heavy to try to keep you from getting connected. Because the whole idea of getting connected in the local church is like a tree that's planted by the water, and its roots go deep down into the soil and grabs hold of those rocks, and it's so firm that no high winds are going to knock that tree over. And that's what happens when we get into a small group or a life group, when we start volunteering, when we build our inner circle around God-fearing, God-loving people. That's what happens. You get rooted, you get grounded, you get connected. And so this is the one thing, the one biggest mistake that new Christians make is they don't get rooted and get connected in the local church. Those relationships are vital and crucial.
Yeah. So I hope that you guys have enjoyed today. Again, we hope you found value. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next week.